All right, the time is 6 p.m. We will go ahead and call this meeting to order. May we have a roll call, please, Ms. Garcia?
Mayor Walter?
Here.
Vice Mayor Anderson?
Here.
Councilmember Bill Hawkins did call in today. Councilmember Wall?
Here.
Councilmember Larson?
Here.
Councilmember Cortez?
Here.
Councilmember Hughes?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Let's begin with a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Sounded amazing with a nice full house. At this time, we are going to go ahead and open up our call to the public. Call to the public for public comment on issues within the jurisdiction of the Town Council. Council rules limit public comment to 3 minutes. Individual council members may respond to criticism made by those commenting, may ask staff to review a matter raised, or may ask that a matter be put on a future agenda. However, members of the council shall not discuss or take action on any matter during an open call to the public unless the matters are properly noticed for discussion or legal action. I do have 3 this evening. The first is Mr. Arthur Wilkerson. Hi, Mr. Wilkerson. How are you this evening?
Good. How are you?
Good, thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. I am here, it pleases me greatly to be here. I am here to give recognition to one of my students. I'm a teacher at Anthem K-8, and I teach government, history, and social studies. I have a young man who is trying to achieve his Eagle Scout, and one of the things that he had to do is to do some community service or some community work and doing something interesting in the community. He chose to come to the City Council as the community event that he wanted to attend. His name is Roberto Ravelas, and that's his dad, Mr. Ravelas. So he is an 8th grader, and so he's only got a few months before he goes to high school. But I am always pleased whenever a student is interested in government, be it state government, city government, or government in general. I like to think it's my outstanding teaching that gets them interested in it. So, but once again, I just wanted to bring him here, or for that, he wanted to come here, and I wanted to let him see what the City Council meeting is all about and make sure that he got recognition for being here. So, that's it. It was under 3 minutes? That's a first.
Well, we appreciate you coming and encouraging your students to attend as well. We also have some opportunities for our youth to participate in, like Florence Teen Council. So I'll make sure to get that information to Miss Elisa so she can ensure that all your students have access.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you. Our next speaker this evening is Miss Kathy Adams.
Good evening. I'm Kathy Adams, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Council. I'm here to celebrate a lot of the activities the Pinal County Historical Society has been participating in this great town. I feel like I've been seeing you guys every week. There's been so many terrific things going on. 2 of my major focuses since I took over with the board of the museum are long-term sustainability and relevance. And relevance is all about community involvement, both us opening our doors, inviting the community in, but much more so us getting out and meeting the community where they live. So I'd like to just go over quickly a couple of things we've done recently. Kudos to the Chamber and Roger Beatty. That car show was amazing. I've seen it grow every single year. We had our fire truck. I'd like to thank Chief Strayer and his fire team. That fire truck is spit polished, and I'm telling you, if you wash your own car, that is not an easy job. We really, really do appreciate it. It's a big hit. The children just love that truck, and there were several firefighters, ex-firefighters from Florence, who rode that truck. So it was very, very interesting meeting them. The other thing we participated in was, of course, the home tour, another Brian and Allie, huge success. We had over 400 visitors. We had people, we advertised that Randy Helm would be showing up around 10. At 9 o'clock, they were lined up in their lawn chairs waiting for him, and they stayed most of the day. It was absolutely fabulous. The mural, okay, for anybody who hasn't seen it, because it's on the south side of our wall, which is, I just learned, the official term for that wall is slump block, and it describes it very accurately. It's dull and beige, and it's slump block. So we decided to put the mural on there to welcome visitors that come in. We get a lot of visitors that drive in from Tucson and Casa Grande up to 79. And when they come to historic Florence, it's not a really terrific introduction to our town, and we felt we could do our share to brighten that up. But the real piece of that is that story is part of a children's storybook, a page of which will be in each of approximately 40 rural towns across the state of Arizona. When he's done, he will publish that children's book, and the whole point is to encourage tourism. So we joined forces with Queen Valley, Miami, and Superior in 4 separate pages with the hopes of getting the Phoenix traffic to come visit all 4 of our towns and see the 4 consecutive pages of the book, along with all the others, but I'm mostly concerned about us. Then, let me see. Oh, and so the other thing we're doing in terms of getting out there and with the community is partnerships. We have now, maybe the 2nd or 3rd year, been very closely related to the prison, as you know. They're restoring our fire truck, but also they were good enough this year to help us with the fundraiser. We run all the prison tours into the administration building now. They used to do some on their own, and we did some. We are running all those tours. They're all fundraisers for the MAC Junior. So please, anybody who has not been on that tour, it is very well attended, and it is really interesting. Then we are also participating in the Third Fridays, which also is another activity just taking off downtown. It's just been terrific looking at all the people coming in. We will be most active in the next month's Third Friday, where we will be participating by having photos and a questionnaire and fill out, I guess, some sort of raffle. If you answer all the questions, you'll get some sort of prize at the end of that, so look for us there. And last but not least, this is the first time since I've been with the museum that we've actually offered a formal program with the Women's Club, and I'm really excited about this. And I'm going to introduce Stephanie Joyner, who is our new executive director. She's going to talk about what we're doing at the museum, and then we'll have Catherine Kitchell from the Women's Club talk about what they're doing that day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Stephanie Joyner. I'm the Executive Director of the Pinal County Historical Society. Mayor, Vice Mayor, council members. Imagine walking down Florence's historic Main Street in the early 1900s to see women dressed up for a special night on the town. In honor of International Women's Day, PCHS Museum celebrates womanhood with a special exhibit titled Cradle to Grave, The Evolution of Women 1880s through 1950s. See fashion and accessories throughout life from childhood to coming of age, adulthood, and end of life. Explore how fashion shapes women's identity and how womanhood has evolved or remained the same. Many of these items are rarely seen, and you'll be amazed at their quality and how small women used to be. The exhibit runs March 8th and the 10th through the 15th from 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. at 715 South Main Street. Tickets are $10 per adult and $5 for museum members. And I invite everyone to join PCHS Museum in this celebration of womanhood.
Thank you very much. And Miss Catherine Kitchell. I love how you all collaborated on that.
Our corporate structure, a chairman of the board. And we have 5 members on our board. We are a corporation incorporated in the state of Arizona. And in our articles of incorporation, our mission is to serve the community, which we have done now for 123 years. And the ladies started out as the Village Improvement Society, and part of their job way back then was to keep the streets nice and clean. And of course, back then, most of them were dirt, and the walkways, a lot of them were dirt. So one of our little items of history is we paid a lady who was close by in town 25 cents to keep a rake under her porch, so it was always available when the ladies went out to do their work in town. So that's the way we actually started in Florence. And part of what we're doing in conjunction with the County Museum and their exhibition of clothing and ladies, and the evolution of clothing and how that actually evolved the place of women in society and in the communities. As clothing changed, ladies could do different things than what they could when they were ladies in the kind of dress that I have like this. And when you think of the history of over 123 years and what the ladies have gone through in building their own building when their first building was destroyed in a flood, garnering all of the financial arrangements, and then negotiating contracts with the prisons for inmate labor, and finally having the building that we have now that is still almost totally original. And our place in Florence and in this community has always been what we do for the people themselves, on more of a one-to-one basis. We have our fashion show. It's always a sellout, but we don't keep that money. We cover our expenses, and all of the rest of it goes to scholarships for high school students. And the Hobie, that's the Hugh O'Brien Youth Program. So we take our money, and most of it goes back into the community in some way or another. At this moment, actually, we're getting ready to write a report that is a special community improvement program that is instituted by our General Federation, and that is our national level, but the Women's Club is international with 80,000 members around the world. So we're not isolated to Florence only, we reach farther out. But on this project, as hard, it stems from the GI 75 and the signing of the GI Bill, which it was one of the most far-reaching pieces of legislation that has been signed. And McFarland, from McFarland State Park, was a co-author on that bill. So we have taken the events of that time with the GI 75, the memorial service that came afterward for the veterans, and then going into the Veterans Memorial Plaza, and we're reporting on what we did for the fundraising, and we're including everyone in the county in this report who worked in that with that project. Even if we do become the recipients of the award, we don't keep the money. It has to go right back into the community. So we're hoping that we can showcase Florence well enough that we get that money and we can put it right back into the community, and the project would have been the American Legion Veterans Programs and the Memorial Plaza. But that's how we operate. We have the tea coming up, which they mentioned, the Ladies of Florence History Tea. And this is where they're $10 for a ticket, and they can be purchased at the Visitor Center, at the museum, or at Carrie Bradley Realty, because she and her daughter are members of our club in town. We'd love to see everybody. Gents are welcome as well. It's going to be our chance to give a presentation of our history throughout these years, from the 1880s to the 1950s. We'll be dressed in period dress, as I am today, and we have some of our state officers have decided that they are going to be present. They asked us, could they please come to Florence the 1st of February to have their executive committee meeting, which was their president, the state officers, and the district presidents of General Federation of Women's Clubs. So that was quite nice, and now they're coming back for the fashion show and the tea. So we've at least spread a bit of interest about Florence as well. So we thank you all for giving us the opportunity to do what we do in Florence, Head Start reading. We just finished the Martin Luther King Day Child and Silver ID, which was a total charitable event. And that's basically what we do. We are a 501c3, and we have IRS designation for that, so any donations are tax deductible. And so we will continue our work in helping our people of Florence and the community around. We hope for another 123 years. So thank you very much, and thank you all in Florence. Thank everyone for all the things that you do, and all the support that you give. And here's a couple of our ladies here, and there's one of our ladies from the American Legion, all people who work toward the event that was held through this continuation, honoring Ernest McFarland, and our military veterans and active military. So thank you all for being here tonight, and thank you for this opportunity. Hope to see y'all soon.
Thank you.
Yeah, the date for this is the same as their date, March the 8th, and the tea is from 1:30 to 3:30 in the afternoon. So we're all prepared for a wonderful historical day.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody else who would like to speak at this time? Yes, sir. Mr. Mike Chappelle. How are you this evening?
I'm good, Madam Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of council. I'd like to put a plug in for the powwow. The powwow is this Saturday. I encourage everyone to find out what the powwow is. I'll give you a brief description. It's called Produce on Wheels. We get fruits and vegetables behind the library in the parking lot that come up from the areas near the border. And I encourage you to come. It costs you $12, and you'll get bags and bags of fruits and vegetables if you've never been there. When you register, you get an email maybe 2 or 3 days before the event. It'll be this Saturday, so I encourage you to get there by 7:30 because it gets pretty crowded. And bring some bags with you because you'll get up to maybe 70, 72 pounds of fruits and vegetables, all fresh. And that registration then allows you to go to other powwows throughout Pinell County. My wife and I are volunteers. We went to the powwow in Mesa last week. We got 9 eggplant, that big. We got a bag of Brussels sprouts. We got a big container of cherry tomatoes, about that big, that tall, all fresh. Zucchini squash. We got oranges and grapefruit. So if you get a chance, stop by on Saturday morning. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that. And also for those that need, we have some youth and adults that volunteer. They'll help get it to your car if you need. Before I close call to the public, I see Mr. Beatty coming up as well. How are you today, Roger?
Good evening. Roger Beatty, Greater Florence Chamber of Commerce, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council members. To add to the plugs, I know Kathy Adam already mentioned Third Friday, but I wanted to invite you all out to this Third Friday. We will be recognizing the Florence High School cheerleaders that finished, that won state for the 3rd time in a row and just finished nationals, where one of the groups finished 2nd. And we'll be recognizing them with a small parade on Main Street, but I know the football team and quite a few players or quite a few high school people are coming out along with the regular people that will be out. So we'll invite everybody out to congratulate our our champions that are part of our town. So thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody else who's inclined? All right, well, I love the positivity this evening. Without any further ado, we're going to go ahead and close call to the public. At this moment, I need a motion to adjourn to Merrill Ranch Community Facilities District Number 1.
Make a motion to adjourn to Merrill Ranch Community Facilities District Number 1.
Second.
We have a motion and multiple seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Item A is discussion and possible approval of a professional service agreement with Stifel, Nicolaus and Company Incorporated to serve as financial advisor for the Merrill Ranch Community Facilities District Number 1 for a variety of potential future bond financings and related services. Ms. Rebecca Jimenez.
Good evening, District Chair and District Board. Very happy to be with you tonight. The town, or basically Facilities District Number 1, is interested in hiring Stifel as our district financial advisor. The district financial advisor performs a lot of duties under their position with the town. What they do is guide us along in bonding issues, help us with the feasibility studies that come in to make sure that they're completed and accurate. They also perform other services as needed, but mostly they are a fine consultant to the town. We have a very long history with Stifel dating back to the early 1990s, and they have been very instrumental in doing a lot of bond issues, especially in the CFD area with the town. The general scope of services, I hope you've had time to review it. They do not get paid until there is a bond issue unless we ask them to do special services for the district. So at this time, we would like for you to consider hiring them as our financial consultant.
Council, do you have any questions? No. There's no questions. And again, as you've mentioned, we've utilized their services for many years and successfully done so. If there's no questions or comments, with that, we need a motion.
Make a motion to approve a professional services agreement with Stifel, Nicholas and Company to serve as financial advisor for the Merrill Ranch Community Facilities District Number 1.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. That motion carries.
Thank you. And I do want to let you know that we'll have another agenda item coming up in Community Facilities District Number 2 that's identical to this. So if you would like for me to come up, I'll be more than happy.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item B is discussion and possible action to approve Merrill Ranch Community Facilities District Number 1, January 21st, 2020, special meeting minutes. If there's no question or comments, with that, we need a motion.
I motion that we approve the Merrill Ranch Community Facility District Number 1, January 21st, 2020 special meeting minutes.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. And that motion carries. With that, we need a motion to adjourn from Merrill Ranch Community Facilities District Number 1.
I'll make a motion to adjourn from Merrill Ranch Community Facilities District Number 1.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. All opposed, same sign. That motion carries. We need a motion to adjourn to Merrill Ranch Community Facilities District Number 2.
Make a motion to adjourn to Merrill Ranch Community Facilities District Number 2.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Item A is discussion and possible approval of a professional services agreement with Stifel, Nicolaus and Company to serve as financial advisor for Merrill Ranch Community Facilities District Number 2 for a variety of potential future bond financings and related services. If there's no questions or comments for Ms. Jimenez, with that, we need a motion.
I make a motion that we approve a professional service agreement with Stifel, Nicholas and Company to serve as financial advisor for the Merrill Ranch Community Facility District Number 2 for a variety of potential future bond financing and related services.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. All opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Item B is discussion and possible action to approve Merrill Ranch Community Facilities District Number 2, January 21st, 2020, special meeting minutes. If there's no questions or comments, with that, we need a motion.
I make a motion that we approve the January 21st, 2020 special meeting minutes.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. At this time, we need a motion to adjourn from Merrill Ranch Community Facilities District Number 2.
I'll make a motion to adjourn from Merrill Ranch Community Facilities District Number 2.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Item 10 is our presentations. Item A is a public hearing to receive public comments on proposed increase to water and wastewater rates and fees. Ms. Rebecca Jimenez.
Good evening again, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Town Council. We have presented the findings on the water and wastewater rates and fees to you, and I have presented that, but we need a public hearing to receive public input on any questions or any comments that they have. So at this time, we would like for you to open the public hearing.
Thank you. At this time, we're going to go ahead and open the public hearing. Is there anybody in the audience or present that would like to ask any questions or make any comments? Okay. With that, we're going to go ahead and close that commenting period. If you do have questions, you could always reach out to Ms. Jimenez.
There will be another opportunity on Friday at 4 p.m. in council chambers where we will also receive public comment, and then we will be presenting the final item on this matter at the March meeting.
Thank you very much for clarifying that.
All right.
Item number B is recognition of the 35th Annual Historic Home Tour Committee. Ms. Allison Feliz.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. At this time, I would just like to recognize our committee members for the home tour. The home tour, we began meeting back in October, and that's kind of been pushed back from previous years. We've had the same committee members for several years now, so their help throughout the years has just really made the event better and better every year. This year, we had about 781 paid guests. That doesn't include the people that were in town at the church festival and just walking around enjoying Florence that day. And then we also had about 120 volunteers for the day as well. So at this time, I would like to call up our committee members for the 35th Annual Historic Home Tour. If I can have, not with us today is going to be Lynn Smith, Maricela Benitez. You can come up here. Barb Kelly, Roger Beatty, and again, not present this evening is Chris Reed. And as I mentioned before, these guys have been there. We have weekly meetings, and they're there every week, putting in their input, doing the hard work, getting volunteers, giving us historic information, and just making this event better and better every year. So we definitely appreciate their help every year. And if we can all give them a round of applause, I would greatly appreciate it.
I'm giving you a standing round of applause because that takes a lot of hard work, dedication, and coordination. So I want to thank you for your time, everything that you've given to the community. You guys were out and about the entire day as well. So, would you like to say something?
being the second year I've done this, I found it as a great joy and pleasure to be a part of this committee, but I'd also really like to thank Allie for a lot of the stuff she does as well, and Barb for helping me through this second year, and Roger for helping with the chamber to put it all together, and Chris and Lynn for their wonderful experience in all that is historic in Florence.
Well said. Our next item is the introduction and recognition of the Town of Florence's Community Emergency Response Team, Class of 2020.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of council. As you recall, about a year ago, we formed our first Community Emergency Response Team, and this is a result of a very strong partnership between the town and the county Office of Emergency Management. So ultimately, it's funded by a federal grant through FEMA. This has been a wonderful program that has really exceeded all expectations. They've participated in numerous emergencies, providing rehab for fire crews. They've participated in full-scale exercises, drills, town events. It's been a wonderful experience. We've through this have acquired a rehab truck that the town council approved, and then FEMA has recently provided a trailer, which you saw coming in tonight. And then we're in the process of acquiring, through 75% grant funding, a vehicle to pull the trailer with. So it's just been a wonderful program that continues to evolve, and we find new things for this group to do. The purpose of tonight is to introduce you to the second group to complete the training. We had 23 people complete the training, and that was without doing any recruitment. So word of mouth is out on this one. We've got some wonderful people. What I'd like to do is call up this, it always gets to the leadership, and that is Barb Elliott, who's going to come up here with Mike Sherm and Donovan Adamczyk, who can't be here tonight. I'm going to ask them to say a few words about the program, and then we're going to read the names of the new folks. Some of the original group are here as well. And then, excuse me, when we get done, I'd like to invite everybody up for group pictures, including the council, if you would be willing to do that. So with that, I'd like to have Barb and Mike to come up and speak.
Good evening. Thank you again, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and council members of having us here. As I stated, I'm with Pinal County Office of Emergency Management, and it has been a terrific partnership that we've come to work with the town of Florence. And I get excited every time Mike's like, hey, we've got people excited for a new class. With the word spreading of the help that Florence has already established with their firefighters and stuff, now even the town of Coolidge and the city of Casa Grande want to start a CERT team. So kudos to you guys and for all these teams and their hard work. And it's all volunteer, and they're dedicating their time to come out and train to be better prepared for their community. And I applaud all of them. Thank you, guys. And we are so looking forward to a continuous partnership with you guys. So I'm excited to work with them all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, Vice Mayor, council members, as one of the team leads, if you don't recall, last year I had shoulder surgery, so I was in an office position basically, and was given the opportunity to assist in starting this team, and it has been a wonderful experience. It's made me a better human being to get to know these individuals. Some of the uniqueness about our team in Florence is that we have the ability to run basically 2 assignments at the same time. So we do have the rehab truck, and last year that was deployed, I believe 7 times for different events, big events where the firefighters either needed rehab. It also went down to Eloy when they had a long 72-hour power outage to hand out ice at one of the fire stations down there. And now we also have the Pinal County trailer, so we can run that trailer basically anywhere in the county for any type of disaster aid, or anywhere in the country really if it was asked. And then the rehab truck can run rehab for your local fire service. Some of the other unique things is we actually have 6 couples now within the team, husband and wife couples, which is pretty outstanding. Most of us drag our spouses to go through it, hence my wife is in the new team. But a lot of them signed up as a couple themselves. So with that, I would like to call out their names, and if you guys could stand, I guess, or go up. Okay. If the new class of 2020 could stand up and go up to the front. Just the 2020s.
Do you guys want to go down and shake their hands as they come and line up? Come on down.
Up there. Up there. Sure. You want them in front of the dais?
Yeah, let's just read off and then we're going to do.
Okay.
This is fine.
All right. All right, so first member of the 2020-1, we are planning on having another class in 2020, so it'll be 2020-2. But 2020-1 is Bill Scott. If you want to come up and stand in front of the dais once your name is called, and we'll get...
We're going to shake their hands as they go to line up.
You're going to go this way, and then stand right up by the dais when we're done.
Thank you very much.
Mike Runis. Mark Nedza. And I believe Greg Waterman was unable to show up tonight. Kelly Keith. Rita Manzi. Not here either. Dan Dancer. Renee, sorry. Go ahead. Yeah, well. Kathy Sickling. Mary James. Mary Ann Sage. Mary Lindsay. Cliff McGinnis. John Stiers. Diane Morris. Ted Masick. John Compton. Sharon's not here. Jill Griffith. Mike Evans. Judy Evans. Okay, yeah, just go up there and then I'll call you up. Cassandra Sherm. And then Mary and Jim. This is Mary and Jim Hansen. So one of the other unique things is Mary and Jim come from Oregon. They were already part of the Oregon CERT team. And they moved here. No, they actually just come in. But they're actually part of the AIRS program, which is the ham radio operators. So not only is our group getting bigger, but it's getting more evolved. So now we're going to have, they offered to put on a class to teach the others how to do ham radio operations. So. And we do have, Mr. Evans has something for Chief Strayer. This came from the fire station.
You gave me this about a week ago or less?
Yes.
That was hanging in there?
Yes.
I did add the thing.
Okay. So when did you first make this?
About 10 years ago I made that for...
He made this for the fire department 10 years ago. Came back and added the cert on the bottom. We're going to hang it back up in the fire station. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Can I get you to take a couple pictures? Thanks, man.
Oh, it works.
Item number 11 is our consent agenda. All items on the consent agenda will be handled by a single vote as part of the consent agenda unless a council member or a member of the public objects at the time the agenda item is called. Item A is approval of a professional services agreement for Stiefel, Nicolaus and Company Incorporated to serve as the financial advisor for the town of Florence for a variety of potential future bond financing and related services. Item B is resolution number 1733-20. This is adoption of a resolution of the town of Florence, Pinal County, Arizona, declaring as a public record certain text amendments to the Town of Florence Code of Ordinances, Title 15, Land Usage, filed with the town clerk and entitled Chapter 150, Development Code, Administration and Procedure, Sections 150 to 150.19, and Part 1, General Provisions, Section 150.80 to 150.81. Item C is authorization to enter into an intergovernmental agreement with Pinal County for provision of service by the Pinal County Elections and Recorders Department. Item D is approval of the January 6th, January 13th, and January 21st, 2020 Town Council meeting minutes. Item E is to receive and file the following board and commission minutes. 1, April 11th, April 18, April 28th, May 30th, June 21st, and July 5th, 2017 Board of Appeals meeting minutes. 2, December 18th, 2019, and January 13th, 2020 Historic District Advisory Commission meeting minutes. And item 3, November 14th, 2019 Parks and Recreation Advisory Board meeting minutes. Ladies and gentlemen, that is your consent agenda. Is there any item anybody would like removed at this time?
I just have a clarification on the number 1. Is it 2019 or 17? The minute meetings.
17.
It is 17, okay.
Madam Mayor, I would like to remove item B from the consent agenda.
Noted. If there's no others, I would like a motion to approve the consent agenda, removing item B.
I motion that we approve the consent agenda with the removal of item B.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Councilmember Wall.
It just seemed to me that there was a lot of red text being added and quite a bit being deleted to this section of our town codes. And I wondered if maybe we could ask Mr. Harmer to give us kind of an overview or summary of the changes being made.
I actually can take this. This is actually happening tonight to declare this to be a public record, and it's not for the actual changes at this time. Our consultant, Dana Burkhart has worked on this code. It has gone through planning and zoning, but there's a couple of things that need to take place in order to have a council have a code. If we are going to have a 24-page ordinance go before council, then I have to put it in the newspaper and publish it for 2 consecutive times. So I went back to the consultant and I said, the town of Florence would much prefer to be able to have this adopted as a public record. That's not you adopting this code. This is just you saying that this is a public record so that it can be heard in the future. So Dana will be coming to the council the second meeting in March, and he will at that time explain all of the items that go along with this. It'll go through a public hearing, and it'll have 2 readings, and it will require 30 days after adoption before it takes place.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
With that, I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 1733-20.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. All opposed, same sign. And that motion carries. Moving on to item 12, which is new business. Item A is ordinance number 690-20. This is the first reading of an ordinance of the Town of Florence, Pinal County, Arizona, amending the Town of Florence Code of Ordinances by striking sections 3230, 3232, 3233, 32120, 32121, 32121 repeat, 32200, 32201, 32202, eliminating the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board, the Library Advisory Board, the Arts and Culture Board, and the Florence Youth Commission, and establishing the Community Services Advisory Board membership section 3285, established 3286, powers and duties section 3287, and meeting section 3215. That being said, Ms. Lisa Garcia.
I would ask Mr. Hughes to attend with me too, as well.
And Mr. Hughes, I'd like to call you both up just so we can formally educate the public and council. And
Mayor, members, and council, at our last work session, we discussed the concept of combining boards. And what we would be doing is we would go away from having 5-member boards, go to a 9-member board. And members of the Library Advisory Board, members of the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board, and members of the Arts and Culture Advisory Commission would be those that would be considered. During that discussion, council members said that they would like to have certain members be able to be beyond the Town of Florence city limits. So as you will note within the ordinance, we have made 3 members be able to be within the planning area of the Town of Florence, which is quite large. This would go ahead and dissolve the Youth Advisory Commission, which we have not been able to have a meeting because we do not have a quorum of appointed members. And we will go back to the bylaws of the Teen Advisory Council, Florence Teen Council, and we will have them elect their members, and then that elected body would be the ones that serve our community and go to things like the League of Arizona Cities and Towns. Now at this time, we have not made contact with the members just to make them be clear that we're going to go to a single board, that they would be meeting monthly, and this would be also considered a working board that would help with parks programming, everything like the Arts and Culture Commission does. And we're going to be making contact to make sure of how many would like to retain their seat. If they would like to retain their seat, then we would be asking council to reappoint them underneath this new commission. And we do have 1 vacancy at this time. We would accept applications for it and make suggestions to council that they hold interviews as suggested within the Town of Florence Code of Ordinances.
Mr. Hughes, would you like to add anything as well?
Mayor, Vice Mayor, council members, I would just like to add that we discussed this a little bit at the work session, and although I love all the members of our different boards. I think this would be more efficient if we had one consolidated board with more members. And I certainly do think it'll be a little bit more effective as far as their recommendations to the town council as well. And we're brainstorming and sharing ideas amongst different groups who have different interests in town. I think it'll benefit everyone. So I agree with the recommendation, the way Lisa wrote the new board. And I think having a few folks outside of our town limits and in the planning area will also give us a little bit more expertise in certain areas. So I think it's a good thing moving forward, and I'm excited about it. So that's all I have to add at this time.
And Mayor, as you asked, we did, Mr. Hughes and I did incorporate Section J of the ordinance, which says to organize, promote a healthy living initiative for adult and youth, including nutritious diets and appropriate exercise habits. And I know that's part of the powwow initiative that the council wanted as well.
Overall, I liked the way that everything was written. I'm going to first ask council if they have any questions or concerns or comments. Councilmember Wall?
Just a correction on the spelling of Sydney Ambrosio, Cydni. She gets that all the time.
Thank you for pointing that out. Vice Mayor?
In the recommended motion action, you call the Florence Youth Commission is being deleted, but down in the background discussion, you call it the Youth Advisory Board.
I will make sure that I double check the ordinance to make sure I have perfect, it needs to be perfect within the ordinance to do the codification.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Are there any other questions? All right. Now, I feel that by culminating them all under one, it allows for greater participation, feedback, and, you know, over the time we have noted how many meetings that we've either had to change the date or they were unable to be held because we were unable to find, you know, a board or a quorum. So I feel that this is in the best interest of the community to get feedback from our community to make decisions. So with that, we need a motion. No, we do not need a motion. I apologize. It's not marked for that. When is this coming back in front of us again?
It'll be back on March 2nd.
March 2nd. So if anybody has any comments, they can submit them to us or to Brian Hughes or Lisa Garcia between now and then. Thank you. Item B is discussion, approval, disapproval of establishing an ad hoc committee titled the Florence Strategic Plan Advisory Committee. I almost said commission. And assigning the following members: Roger Beatty, Harold Christ, Pete Caloris, Henry Padilla, Mike Chappelle, and Betty Wheeler. Ms. Lisa Garcia.
Mayors and council, we also discussed this item at your work session. And what we've done is we've asked for the board to be limited to 9 members, and we're currently accepting applications. We have 2 applications on file, and we have not even advertised yet, so that's very good news. And if council would like more members, this is council's committee. That will be an ad hoc committee to council. We'll just go over strategic events and have them advise staff, have them meet with council. So really, it's your committee. So if you want us to change anything, please let us know, and we will do that.
Thank you. I do want to add on to that, that we're very grateful for the service that this committee provided during our original strategic plan. I feel that we can do a better job through establishing this committee of continuing that avenue for communication and moving forward, ensuring that we're all following that plan and meeting those goals.
And just so you know, when we get applications in, we will once again be asking that council to follow the process that is established by ordinance for appointments of boards.
Excellent. Councilmember Hughes.
How long will they serve on this?
This particular strategic plan is Council's 2017 to 2022 strategic plan. And so if the council wants to change the way we do it at that time, that's when we would come back and ask you what you wanted to do with your future. And we'd be looking at in about 2021, coming in and saying, how does council want to update? Is there anything that you want to change?
Okay, and will it have structured monthly meetings, at least monthly meetings?
It
or-
will have meetings as necessary. If council would like us to meet monthly, we could. The most important thing in a strategic plan is that we are strategic in our meetings and make sure that every time we meet, it's timely, it has important items, and that we're not just meeting to meet. So I can tell you that prior to staff coming out and updating the council on what strategic activities we've done, we would want to meet with our Strategic Activity Advisory Committee and make sure that they've seen it, had questions, that we're providing the best input to both council and to our committee. Another thing that we're really excited about working with the committee is the word of mouth on the street for the projects that the council has authorized, to be able to have more people understand what we're doing and how it falls into the strategic plan, and what kind of finances have been available for those projects.
Why I ask is because the current people that are on here have said that they never had any meetings. So that's why I'm asking for structure for them, because they said they were utilized at the beginning, it was printed, and then they never met again.
That's because it was a strategic committee that was an ad hoc committee that once the plan was printed, the committee was dissolved. And so we are asking, that's why we came back to ask for the committee to be reinstated so that we can work with them. And we are not putting forth a timeline on when that will be dissolved. So it would be up to the council and how the council's decision was to plan for future strategic plans beyond 2022.
Councilmember Wall?
Not knowing where everyone who's currently being suggested, where they're from, I would also like to see if we can't include a member or members from Parkside and the 5 Parks area, so that we have input from those areas as well, if we don't already have members from that area, from those areas.
I will make sure we do that.
Excellent, good suggestion. Councilmember Cordes?
The only suggestion, or I don't even know, maybe it's a concern, is that sometimes I see the same names on a lot of committees, and I just want to make sure that the people that are on this committee that are already named and the ones that want to join it truly have the time to show up to the meetings. Because if we only have 2 or 3 meetings and they miss all 3 of them, and if we only have 9 spots available and we gave one to someone who couldn't attend those meetings, I feel like that's a disservice to all of us. So I just want to make sure, because there are a couple names that I see on a lot of things, and they don't attend those things. So I already know that they're probably stretched a little thin, but not wanting to say no, that maybe we just make sure that they truly can commit to this, and that they understand that we really need participants and not just people that want to be a part of a committee.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Right now, the only structure that I have is if a person misses 3 consecutive meetings, then it's basically their staff has the right to bring it before council and have them removed from the committee. That's for a standard board and commission. This is an ad hoc committee, so if you want to make more structured rules saying that you can only miss 2 meetings, if you put that in the motion, I can definitely do that, or we can leave it at 3 meetings missed.
Excellent. Well, again, I want to thank the individuals that have stepped forward so far to commit to continuing on with us. With that, we need a motion.
I'm going to say, it's my understanding that all these people have been contacted, right?
Staff did contact all of the members, and these were the members from the 2017 to 2022 board that did say yes, they would like to participate.
Thank you.
With that, we need a motion.
Well, I'll make a motion that we establish an ad hoc committee titled the Florence Strategic Plan Advisory Committee and assigning the following members: Roger Beatty, Harold Chris, Peter Coloris, Henry Padilla, Mike Chappelle, and Betty Wheeler.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? And that motion carries. Item C is discussion, approval, disapproval to correct the date for a public hearing on an increase of sanitation rates and fees from March 16th, 2020 to April 20th, 2020, to be in compliance with the statutory law.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Town Council, yes, on February 3rd, I came before you asking that we set a March 16th public hearing for the sanitation fee increases. But sanitation fees do not fall within the same rules that water and wastewater do. So I do need a 60-day compliance to notify, and we did post this on our website already with the corrected dates on it. So I'm asking that you consider that we set the public hearing for April 20th.
Excellent. Any questions? With that, we need a motion.
I'll make a motion that we set the date for the public hearing on the increase of sanitation rates and fees to April 20th, 2020.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. All opposed, same sign. And that motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item D is discussion, approval, disapproval of a professional services agreement with the James Vincent Group to conduct a certificate of need feasibility study for ambulance services in the amount not to exceed $30,000. At this time, I'm going to go ahead and remove this item from tonight's agenda meeting. This is something that's already going through legislature at this time, and pending the outcome of that, we will proceed accordingly. So Ms. Garcia, at this time, I'll request that you just put this on a future agenda that is appropriate. And that brings us to item number 13, which is our legislative report. Mr. Ben Bitter.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. The bill that you mentioned, Mayor, is House Bill 2825. That is introduced the last day that bills are allowed to be introduced, and kind of caught us all by surprise. That bill would eliminate any requirement for a certificate of need and necessity, which would mean it would be silly of us to go through a process to go study and go through and make the expense if the legislature and or the governor were to make the determination that such was not even necessary. And so we felt it expedient to make a recommendation that we hold off on going into that until we find the ultimate fate of House Bill 2825. That could come as early as this week, but it could be into the future. We'll just have to kind of keep an eye on that coming into the future. As it relates to a few other bills of interest and import to the council, House Bill 2551, which is the appropriations for the Heritage Fund, went through committee, or is, in the House Appropriation Committee tomorrow. So we'll be keeping an eye on that. We've already signed in to support that bill. And then House Bill 2705, which is the bill that the town has been actively pursuing in terms of vacant and abandoned properties. That passed through the House Government Committee last week on an 8-3 vote. And we're looking for that to go to rules here in the near future so that it can then be voted on by the House as a whole and then go over to the Senate. So we're still working pretty hard on that one, but just to give you an idea, I mentioned 899 bills in the House. There were 682 additional in the Senate, and then 111 resolutions by those. So in total, 1,692 bills this year at the legislature, which I believe is an all-time record. But one thing I wanted to do, if it pleases the mayor and council, and we did get an opportunity to watch the Senate and House Appropriations Committee meetings this past week. And one thing that I am constantly asked as I'm up in Phoenix or even in the community are what's going on with the prisons and when are they closing the Florence prison. And the JLBC, which is the Joint Legislative Budget Commission, presents budget information and kind of some background information to the House and Senate Appropriation Committees each year as it goes leading up to the budget. And the JLBC did a great presentation, and there were some great comments back and forth. So what we actually did is got a copy of the video from the House Appropriations Committee, and we have started to stream that on Channel 11. It's 36 minutes. What I'd like to do, if it's all right with you all tonight, is just show you about 7 minutes of that 36 minutes, and we'll send out the link to you as well. It's pretty simple, tinyurl.com/Florence Prison. We'll take you right there, but it's on the town's YouTube channel and will be broadcast on Channel 11. But if it's acceptable to you, Mayor and Council, then I think we can watch about 7 minutes of that and give you a pretty good context of where the legislature stands on this issue right now, where we are in terms of the budget process, and then still some of the questions that remain unanswered, both for us as well as for JLBC and the legislators. I think that'll be pretty helpful.
Yes, proceed.
So just to give lead in, the member of JLBC, his name is Jeff, but he's doing the presentation, and then you'll hear various legislators kind of interrupt asking some questions, but feel free to stop me anywhere along the process if you have questions.
And supervise to enable them to create more books and to expand that program. Moving on to slide 5, the executive, Madam Chair and members, as you're aware, has proposed closing the Florence prison. This comes at a cost of $33 million, which annualizes to $49 million in fiscal '22. Members, you may have seen some numbers out there quoting potential cost savings as a result of closing Florence. We've seen numbers ranging between $150 million and $400 million. These aren't actual literal savings you would see in the budget. This proposal comes at a cost, as I said, of $33 million in '21 and annualizing to $49 in '22. The cost savings are cost avoidance, so it's what the executive estimates you would have to spend if you intended to keep Florence Prison open. So these would be costs incurred as a result of keeping it open, meaning, retrofitting, remodeling, fixing existing issues at the Florence Prison to keep it running. And I can talk a little bit more about that in a few minutes. The proposal would eliminate about 3,600 beds at the Florence Prison. To make up for that, the executive proposes adding almost 4,200 beds at private prisons and county jails for a net increase of 514 beds.
Madam Chairwoman?
Yes, you
Just
may.
a question on that specific point. Do we know what the breakdown is between the county jails and the private prisons?
Madam Chair and Representative Lieberman, we're not quite sure yet. So there's existing capacity in the private prison contracts we have now. A few years ago, we capped their populations at 97%. So there's about 300 or so beds between the existing private prison contracts that we could immediately open up for use. But obviously 300 beds out of 4,000 is just a sort of drop in the bucket. For the majority of these, we would have to seek contracts, so an RFP would have to be issued. We're aware of some private beds that are available out there, but we'd have to likely go out for an RFP. That could take some time. And so the agency and the executive has said their first priority would be to partner with counties, see how many beds they can get from the county jails initially, and then they would use the existing capacity that they have at other prisons in the department, and then move on to finding beds in private prisons.
And Mr. Lieberman?
Everyone good so far? All right, let me go on to the next part.
And so it could depend.
Thank you.
Okay, Madam Chair, moving on to item 3 here on this list. The executive's proposal would shift most of the Florence staff to Iman, so no one would be losing their job under this proposal, and that would include nearly 500 CO2s. And that would, shifting those to Iman, which is just up the road from the Florence prison, it's only a few miles, that would effectively reduce Iman's vacancy rate, almost eliminating it altogether. And so that, that's obviously a positive. Members are aware of vacancy problems in the department.
You may.
Thank you, Madam Chair. On that issue,
So there's vacancies at Hyman. We're going to transfer the DOC officers from Florence to Hyman. But even though that sounds like a net zero loss of jobs, in fact, we are losing jobs that are going away. They were just never filled at Hyman. So there is really a net loss of jobs.
Madam Chair and Dr. Freeze, yes, it's the difference between sort of, we've talked about total FTE versus filled FTE. So there are unfilled positions at Florence right now. There are unfilled positions at Hyman. And so I haven't seen a proposal to technically cut the number of FTE at the department. They would be unfilled positions. No one would be actually losing their job, but this could potentially reduce the number of, because you're reducing a prison, a state prison, a large state prison, you could potentially just reduce the FTE count, but those would be just approved sort of total FTE rather than filled FTE. So yes, I understand the technical answer is technically yes, you could be eliminating job positions, but those weren't filled and maybe haven't been filled for quite a while. So. Madam Chair, as I said, this funding would fund these private and county placements, and I can get into some of those numbers that Dr. Freeze was interested in on this next slide. So the cost the executive is assuming for private and county beds in fiscal 21 is about $62 million, and that would annualize to about $110 million in fiscal 22. As I said, that assumes a $75 per diem, and that per diem would obviously depend on contract negotiations. The executive has assumed some net savings from closing the Florence prison. As I said, they're shifting all FTEs to other prisons, and so these are non-personnel costs. They've assumed about $28.7 million in savings in 21, annualizing to a little bit more than $60 million in fiscal 22. So this is a multi-year, multi-phase plan to...
Sorry.
Didn't mean to
No, you're
interrupt.
fine.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Jeff. I'm just wondering, does this include savings for overtime because we have so many vacancies? I know they're paying a lot of overtime right now. Is that figured into here with no longer having so many vacancies?
Madam Chair and Representative Udall, yes. So the preliminary numbers I've seen on these calculations from the executive, from the governor's office, does include some assumed overtime savings. The executive or the department spends somewhere around $60 to $70 million per year on overtime. They have assumed some of these savings is overtime. We're having ongoing conversations with the governor's budget office to determine whether those are realistic sort of ongoing savings. And so those conversations are sort of ongoing. But yes, they have built in some assumed overtime savings as a result of eliminating those some of those vacancies and not relying as much on overtime. And Madam Chair, as I mentioned, we're still seeking some more detail on how these net closures savings were calculated, and those conversations are ongoing as part of the budget process.
Madam Chairwoman?
Yes.
I just want, so that 22 is like a run rate number going forward. That's not like it will eventually save us more in the third year because we'll decommission some team that needs to be there.
I'm sorry, Madam Chair, Representative, which number are you talking about?
For 22, the $60 million in savings, that's like the annual cost of it's not going to keep going up.
Madam Chair, Representative Lieberman, yes, so this is the assumed ongoing. So the first year they're phasing it in, and it's sort of unclear. That's not obviously a 50% of the cost, so we're unclear exactly when this will happen. The logistics of just closing a prison on one day and shifting 4,000 inmates would be difficult, so it's probably going to happen over a period of time. But in 22, those are the full net savings that they're assuming on.
Just to that point, so there are no long-term savings from closing the prison. In fact, it's costing us $50 million a year more. I guess you'd have the maintenance we might have to eventually do at Florence, but it's $50 million more to do this.
Madam Chair, Representative Lieberman, yes. Yeah.
All right. So I think that gives you a pretty good idea. It gets a little wonky in there, but really you're looking at about a $50 million cost to the state of Arizona per year to close the prison. So we did have discussions with Dr. Freeze, who asked questions prior to this meeting. We met with the House minority leadership, and he sits on that leadership, and so we were able to convey some of those points prior to this meeting, and I think that discussion that we continue to have with legislators as we're looking for ways to minimize the impacts to the town. That's taking some hold, and we're starting to get some traction in terms of finding real benefits for, I guess, offsetting some of those negative impacts. And so as we continue to go throughout the legislative session, that'll continue to be our number one goal, is to ensure that we are made as whole as possible despite the announcement of this closure, and we can try to do the best that we can for our citizens. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Councilmember Cordes.
So I know they keep talking about there's no job loss, and it actually doesn't say no job loss. They're slyly saying minimal.
Yeah.
So in that, all they talk about are the DOC officers. What about maintenance or those jobs that there aren't vacancies at another facility? Those people, what is going to happen to them?
Yeah,
They're going to lose their job.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Councilmember Cordes, we have had some initial discussions with the director. Actually, as part of this video, you'll see the director does answer some of those questions afterwards towards the end of that 36-minute segment. Similarly, if you wanted to go pull the Senate appropriations, he answers very similar questions. From what we can tell, there is some administrative positions that may be shifted even to Phoenix, where there may be duplication between the Florence complex and the Iman complex. But really, from what we're told, those will be minimal. Most everyone that is working at the Florence complex is going to be able to plug and play, so to speak, at the Iman complex, so still within town.
And then when they talk about the $50 million, it sounds like is a kind of a rough idea.
Yeah.
In that number, are they taking into consideration that, okay, you close the prison down, but you still have to address the building? Have they taken into consideration the cost of figuring out what to now do with this complex once it's empty?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. Councilmember Cordes, I didn't show the very next slide, and the very next slide actually says, yeah, I should have, I guess. It says questions that remain unanswered, and that is largely one of the questions, because they continue to say that the execution chamber will remain active at the Florence complex, which limits potential future use for the rest of the site. So within that central unit, in that far southwest corner at the Florence complex, is where the execution chamber is. Well, what does that mean for access to the rest of the central unit if you were to make that a tourist destination, if you were to make that open for tours? Those types of questions have still escaped answer. And so, I would say there's not an answer for that yet, and we continue to work for the same solutions that it appears the JLBC is searching from the executive office.
So really, it could end up not being a savings by the time you factor in everything. And the one benefit I see is that the empty positions that we have, because we're having a hard time filling positions amongst all facilities, yeah, we're going to have full staff, but at what cost are we going to have full staff? Not just to the employees, but to the town and to our residents, because those minimal jobs that might be affected by having to go to Phoenix affect our town as well, because now if that's the main breadwinner of the family, the head of household, that family may now need to move to Phoenix and out of Florence, or move out of Santana, or one of our smaller areas. And so I look at this and I don't think it's going to end up being the savings that has been touted to us, but I guess we'll wait and see.
Well, and Councilmember, I think that's the point that JLBC and or those that were asking questions at House Appropriations, that's the point they were making, is that there may be a cost avoidance of $274 million or whatever that number is. But in reality, because you are potentially sending these inmates that we currently have out on state contracts to county facilities or private facilities, the increased cost for housing those at the contract rate increased the cost overall by about $50 million per year to the state.
Question. If the legislature or whoever, whatever committee this was, agrees that it's a bad idea, can they do anything about it?
Yeah, again, Mayor, Council Member, Vice Mayor Anderson, the legislature holds the power of the purse. Ultimately, they must approve a budget that then gets sent to the governor for his signing. And so if there is not funding for those state contracts, and that question was kind of hit on a little bit in that video segment we watched, but if they do not fund the RFP, for example, then the state wouldn't have any money from which to pay these contracts. And so ultimately, yes, but the executive does have a lot of latitude in terms of what he does with his administrative departments. And so it's kind of a game of cat and mouse, I guess, in many respects.
Councilmember Hughes.
Will they utilize the Pinell County jail to first fill Florence up and then expand out, or did they expound on that at all?
Yeah, they did on the Senate Appropriations Committee meeting on Tuesday of last week. So if you wanted to see a specific answer from the director on that, you could refer that. Basically what Director Shin mentioned at that point was that they've had discussions with Pinell County, and there are about 900 beds that are open at Pinell County Jail. However, Pinell County Jail is currently understaffed as well. And so if they were going to take on 900 additional inmates, they would need to take on additional correctional officers or detention officers, whatever they're called within the Pinell County system. But then also, a jail operates differently from a prison, where a prison requires educational programming and recreational programming. Even things down to the number of TVs per prisoners is something that's codified in the Arizona Administrative Code. And so a lot of the facilities, inclusive of the Pinell County Jail, would need to do some sort of structural or capital upgrades in order to receive the inmates from the prison. And so lots of complexities. I know the director was meeting with all of the county sheriffs last Friday. I don't know what happened from that meeting, but there is ongoing discussion in terms of what that could look like and if it's at all feasible.
Thank you.
Not on this.
On another bill? Okay, go ahead.
So I just wanted to ask for what is the next step on Senate Bill 1446. It is the Senate Education Committee that would require all schools to provide all school IDs to have the suicide prevention awareness number on the back of them. And it passed 9-0 today, thanks with the big push from Braden Biggs. So just because I don't know what the next step is, I just wanted you to tell me, because I think I do, but I just want to make sure I'm correct.
Yeah, so quickly pulled it up here as we're talking. As you'll see, it was also assigned to rules, which is the traditional step after it passes out of committee. So the Rules Committee is kind of a nebulous group of assigned legislators, and they decide when bills go to the floor of the House. So the Rules Committee will make that determination when this bill, if it goes to the floor, and then it'll go to what they call the Committee of the Whole, and then go for a third reading. It's already had its second reading at the Senate. And so go for a third reading, which is final reading of the bill. If the Senate were to pass it at that point, then it would be sent over to the House, and the House would basically mirror this same process.
Well, I know that I signed in and marked my support for the bill, so I would hope that everybody would, because there is definitely no negative to giving our children access to suicide awareness information.
All right, Mr. Bitter, is there anything else you'd like to share this evening?
That's it, Madam Mayor.
All right, thank you very much. Mr. Billingsley, for your manager's report.
Nothing to report.
This is our second call to the public. Is there anybody from the public that would like to speak at this time? Would you like to come up and share something that you learned this evening? Well, I'd like to thank you for being here this evening. With that, we're closing call to the public. Our next item is call to the council. Councilmember Wall.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a couple of quick things. First of all, I would like to make sure that everyone gets to see this beautiful Chamber of Commerce and Destination Florence Visitor Guide and Business Directory. It is absolutely beautiful. Congratulations to the Chamber for putting it all together. All the work that went into it is very obvious, and thank you very much for it. I attended the home tour a couple Saturdays ago. I was and always have been impressed with the tour and the individual volunteers at each of the residences and buildings. It was amazing to see so many people. The costumes that a lot of people had on were beautiful. Probably the highlight of my day there was to be able to hear Randy Helm at the museum talking about the horse and burro prisoner program. He brought with him 3 prisoners who are and have been involved in that program for a couple of years, and they spoke so well about the program and what it's meant to them and what they plan to do with their lives once they are released from prison, how much it has changed them. They talked about the reasons they were in prison and what the program has meant to them. So for me, it was just confirmation of what a great program that is. I would also like to thank John Anderson and Brent Billingsley for providing us with the summary of the Growing Water Smart workshop. The information that was in this information was very eye-opening in terms of what the town of Florence has in the way of water resources. So if you haven't had a chance to read through it, it's very interesting. I'd also like to comment on one of the items that was in the minutes from the January 13th HDAC work session with the Arizona First, or I can't remember the name of the organization, where we talked about, it was from the local First Arizona Foundation. One of the things that we keep hearing about that's a problem for individuals who are trying to renovate historic buildings is the requirement for ADA bathrooms. And one of the comments that was made in the minutes is that there is an ability for smaller buildings to utilize public restrooms that are not inside of their building, but that the town does not have enough public restrooms for them to qualify not to put ADA bathrooms in. So I would just like to put a bug in our advisory committee and the town planning department, et cetera, to consider the possibility of locating more public restrooms in the downtown area. That might help some of our economic development in the downtown area. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Larson.
I had the pleasure of going to the car show. I know we were also talking about different things here, so I just wanted to point out how amazing the car show was this year. And I stopped in and talked to Roger, and he said that there's possible expansion next year. It just keeps growing. And sometimes there was 3 cars deep on the roads. So it was nice to see them all in the nooks and crannies. I don't even think I saw them all. I thought I tried, but I missed some of them clearly by the pictures that I saw later. So I loved everything from the variety of music to the uniqueness of the cars, the range of age of the cars. There was one, I think it was like 1903, a little buggy. It was like 1 of 5 in the world. I thought that was amazing that we were able to have that in exhibition here. I've just been really impressed with all of our partnerships and how things have grown over the past couple years. Especially, it seems like the last couple years we've really had some good momentum, like we've talked about earlier, and I'm really excited for all the things that were coming ahead as well. So I just wanted to say thank you again.
Member Hughes.
I also was at the car show. It was great. I loved that it was totally different music from one end to the other. Ate our way through, saw lots of people. I'm amazed. I think it's great. I kept hearing, but they just kept coming. the cars just kept coming. So that's such a great problem to have. So, you know, we have a big downtown, so we can grow. That's all. Thanks. Thank you.
Councilmember Cortez.
I was at the car show too. I was working though, so I tend to always volunteer and never actually get to participate in the festivities. So the only cars I got to see were the ones that were sitting in front of the Silver King, which were fabulous cars, and I got to listen to Joel's great DJing skills all day long, and that was great. And I kept making the joke that the plaster was going to come off the walls because you could hear it in the building going boom, boom, and like vibrating. And we got to do some dancing, and we had a great time. The home tour was fabulous. This is the first time I've ever actually attended, but I was working as well, so I didn't get to go into many of the buildings. I went into a couple that I hadn't been in before, and that was a great event. I was excited to be there, and I was amazed at how many people I met that did not know the home tour was going on, but came to Florence just to come to Florence, and we were able to get them to join the home tour and go on the tour instead of just hanging out on Main Street and not really getting to see all the things and take advantage of the trolleys that took everybody through the tour and then took them over to the windmill. So that was, I thought was great that we had visitors that didn't even know this was going on, and it gave them some energy and some excitement, and then they came back for the car show because I saw them. I said, oh, we're having a car show, you gotta come to that, and they did. So that was great, and I've heard nothing but positive things, and people are so excited about all the events that we're having and how successful they are, and every event comes with some hiccups and some bumps. But that's okay, because like Councilwoman Hughes said, it's great that we had so many cars that it took them 2 hours to all get parked, and that some of them were mad because their cars were not going to stay running that long, and what were we supposed to do? Hey, we'll push your car into its spot, we don't care. And then third Friday, which is this Friday, we're gonna recognize the cheerleaders, the band will be there from the high school. I'm a little partial because my son's in that. The basketball players are gonna be there. Some of the football players are gonna show up, and it's gonna be a great event, kind of like an impromptu pep rally for all of the success that our students have had. You know, like Roger said, the cheerleaders have won state 3 years in a row. They took second place and fourth place at nationals, which if you've never been to a national cheer or dance competition, that is not an easy thing to do. It's not easy to get there, but it's definitely not easy to place within the top 10, let alone that top 5. That is very difficult to do. You have to have almost, if not a perfect routine, and you can have a perfect routine and still not get first place because somebody was just that much more perfect than you. So that's a great thing. We also had some wrestlers that went on that made it to state. We had our girls basketball team that took their regional championship against ALA Queen Creek. So our athletes and our students have just been excelling at Florence. And within the district altogether, the district has had a lot of success this season with its athletes. So I hope everybody comes out and just celebrates all that is great about Florence. Thank you.
Well, I guess I'll start out by talking about the Water Smart that we attended. I want to thank Brent for inviting us, and the other members of our staff that went. I think we all enjoyed it. We all learned something. It was a typical conference where they broke into different sessions, and we sort of split up and tried to cover all the sessions. I got to go to a session. I'm not sure I even told Brent all the details, but the sponsor of that session, the speaker, was one of the department managers from ADWR. And of course, he got a lot of criticism about what's going on with all the allocations and stuff that's going on in the water. And of course, he was very defensive and says, well, there's not much I can do. You have to go see your legislature. You got to change the code. And so finally, one of the people asked him, said, well, doesn't ADWR recommend to the legislature? And he just sort of shuffled around and says, I guess so. So we'll see, because we gave him a whole bunch of recommendations. But it was interesting. I think we all learned a lot, and it was a good conference. I also attended the car show, and one car had some tears on it where I was crying on it. They had a 57 pink Oldsmobile. And that's what I had when I was a senior in high school, was a 57 pink Oldsmobile. It was beautiful. Mine was an 88, that was a 98, but it was fun seeing that car there. We also had a great showing at the home tour. My wife and I were ambassadors, and it's always fun meeting the people and trying to answer their questions. You know, my wife says, I don't know anything about the technical part of the town. I don't think about these houses, but she sure put on a lot of armbands on people. So I'm very proud of her. The horse show, we attended also, and Councilman Wall, you're so right about the men who were there on the horses. If they didn't have on orange jumpsuits, you would never known they were prisoners. They were regular people. They made some mistakes, and they're trying to get their lives straightened out. I hope those horses help them. And of course, Randy is listen to him tell how he breaks horses is really interesting. They don't get on bucking broncs. He gets out and talks to them. He really is a horse whisperer. So if you haven't heard his deal on how he breaks horses, you need to go hear that. I did see the mural. It is beautiful. If you haven't seen it, you need to go down and take a look at it. There's so much that has gone on in the town the last 2-3 weeks. I'm just so proud of our town. I want to thank Brian and Allie for all that they've done over this last month for bringing people into town. I think we're on our road to really building Florence. Thank you.
Very well said. We've had a lot of activities going on. There's a lot behind the scenes that people don't see that happen in order for these amazing events and opportunities to happen. First and foremost, we have our citizens and our staff that come together. They meet, as Allie mentioned, for months planning this. There's also coordination with our police and fire to make sure that everybody that's in attendance at all of these events, they're safe. Everything is planned out. At both the events, the home tour and the car show, we had so many new visitors, residents, people that came to visit our community, traveling around, seeing what we had to offer. I really enjoyed how all of the businesses were open during those events. It gave people an opportunity to go through, see what our town has to offer, come back and come shopping for more. You know, we've heard about our cheerleaders going on. We're really proud of our young athletes in the community, especially our cheerleaders. It really is no simple task to go to nationals. Not only have they represented well across the state years in a row, I believe it was 4 years in a row. They've also gone to nationals. They've placed top 5, they placed 4th, and they're coming back. Again, just to reiterate, I do hope you'll come out this coming Friday onto Main Street. We have some special presentations that we're going to be giving to them, as well as a show. We also have a lot of things coming up. It's always important to look back, but it's also important to look ahead. You know, as Mr. Chappelle said when he presented at Call to the Public, we have our powwow this coming Saturday. The times are from 8 to 11 a.m. The lines are not that bad. That goes very quickly, to be quite honest with you. 70 pounds of produce, $12. We have people to help you to your car, so I hope that you'll come on out, say hi, pick up some produce, share with some neighbors. I know that that's a lot of what our community does as well. We also heard from Kathy Adams and Catherine Kitchell. We have some opportunities coming up with the Florence Women's Club, as well as the Pinal County Historical Museum. We will have the tea and the fashion show. The fashion show is always a lot of fun. I especially like to see our police officers and firefighters escorting the ladies down the runway in their spring fashions. It's amazing. It's not too late to get your tickets to the Florence Music Festival that's going to be taking place at Heritage Park in just a few short weeks. $25, 2 days. They even have camping still available at Heritage Park. And just one more event to look forward to is our Arts and Crafts Show that will be happening on Main Street in April. So, again, a lot of this takes hard work, planning, a lot of behind the scenes, and for that I really am grateful. We do have an executive session this evening, so with that I need a motion.
Mayor, actually, can I say one more thing?
Yes.
I'm sorry, I forgot, and I was actually hoping somebody else would catch it before, so I didn't have to interrupt. I apologize. But I just wanted to say, first of all, thank you to Mr. Wilkerson for bringing his student out here, and I just wanted to recognize you as a teacher, the dedication that you must have to your students to bring him out today and take that time to do that at an individual level. I think that that's very, very honorable, and it's teachers like you that make all the world of the difference to a student. So I just wanted to thank you as a teacher for doing that above and beyond for our community.
And with that, we need a motion.
I make a motion we adjourn to executive session.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. All opposed, same sign. And that motion carries.